Hello everyone. Today we're going to explore an incredible discovery. Scientists have found forbidden texts from ancient Egypt that no one was supposed to read. Before we dive into this intriguing topic, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and follow us for more fascinating content. Let's get started. The sun of modern Egypt beat down on the excavation site at Deir el-Medina, the ancient village of the artisans who built the tombs of the Valley of the Kings. It wasn't a great gold find or a hidden pyramid that caught the archaeologists' breath in 1928, but something far more fragile and ultimately far more subversive, a cache of discarded papyri, tiny fragments of everyday life and, most importantly, forbidden literature that no one, according to Thebes' priestly elite, was supposed to read. The discovery, made by a team from the French Institute of Oriental Archaeology, wasn't sensational at first. The scientists were excavating a community dump or cesspool, a place where elite builders and craftsmen, along with their families, dumped their waste. Among fish bones, broken pottery sherds and organic debris, they found hundreds of ostraka, shards of pottery or limestone used as erasers, and fragmented papyrus scrolls. These were the waste papers of an upper-middle-class community from the 19th and 20th dynasty, a mundane record of laundry lists, love letters, receipts, and work notes. However, in cleaning and translating the texts, Egyptologists realized they were in possession of a unique collection of writings, popular and satirical literature that represented a worldview radically different from, and often disrespectful of, the official theology of the state. These were the forbidden texts, not because they contained direct theological heresies, but because they subverted the social hierarchy and mocked the sacred institutions that sustained pharaonic power. The first group of texts that shocked scientists was social satire. They found ostraka containing short stories that inverted the social order. One famous text, known as the Satire of the Trades, satire on the professions, openly criticized the supposed glories of bureaucratic and military professions, instead exalting the life of a scribe as the only occupation that guaranteed comfort and respect. This subtle but stinging critique challenged state propaganda that glorified war and large-scale administration. But the real shock came from the parody and mockery texts. Archaeologists unearthed drawings and texts that mercilessly parodied sacred mythology. One notable papyrus, the Turin erotic satirical papyrus, although found separately, its style is reflected in the Deir el-Medina texts, depicted animals taking on human roles, such as cats serving mice and lions playing senet, a board game. Most outrageous was the role reversal among the animals, with the mouse as the master and the cat as the servant. This symbolic subversion of the natural order was a direct attack on the concept of ma'at, the cosmic and social order that the pharaoh was obliged to maintain. The banned texts revealed a culture of humor and popular criticism that archaeologists hadn't thought possible in theocratic Egypt. They found ostraka containing jokes about drunken priests, lazy office workers, and most daringly, caricature-like drawings of pharaohs and queens in compromising or ridiculous situations. This freedom of expression in discarded literature contrasted sharply with the solemn majesty of the temples and tombs these same artisans were building. The secret of these texts' existence in the first place lies in the special status of the Deir el-Medina community. These artisans were the intellectual elite of contemporary Egypt, literate at a level far above average, well-paid, and, due to their work in the Valley of the Kings, physically isolated from the rest of society. This isolation fostered an internal culture with its own rules and a sub-literature that served as an escape valve from the pressures of court life and state dogma. Archaeologists realized that these texts were prohibited not by formal decree, but by the social self-regulation of the elite. Writing and copying these texts was a risky act, as they represented an ideological disloyalty to the system that sustained them. Therefore, many of them were found intentionally destroyed or discarded in places where it was assumed they would not be found or read by the authorities. The third group that caused a stir was personal lyric poetry and unconventional love stories. Unlike formal hymns and moralistic literature, These forbidden texts spoke of human passions, carnal desires, and emotional conflicts with a frankness that official literature avoided. Scientists found love poems of surprising intensity that painted a picture of Egyptian emotional life that was much richer and less structured than previously believed. The best-kept secret revealed by these papyri is the gap between the public image and the private reality. Pharaonic literature projected an image of immutable order, absolute piety, and blind loyalty to the god Pharaoh. The texts from Deir el-Medina, in contrast, revealed a cynical, humorous, and dubious society that laughed at its own leaders and its gods in the privacy of its community. The impact of this discovery was the humanization of ancient Egypt. Egyptologists could no longer view the Egyptians as purely hierarchical and submissive beings. The forbidden texts revealed a people with a dark sense of humor, a capacity for mockery, and a complex inner life, who used satire and parody as intellectual tools to process and subvert the immensity of the power that governed them. The archaeology of the Deir el-Medina ostraka transformed from a minor excavation into a fundamental pillar for understanding Egyptian social history. Scientists began searching for these discarded literatures elsewhere, realizing that the true voice of the Egyptian people was not found on temple walls, but in dumps and forgotten corners. The mythological parody contained in the forbidden ostraka and papyri is a secret that points to a possible crisis of faith, or at least a widespread skepticism among the intellectual elites of Deir el-Medina. The act of drawing and writing jokes about Horus, Seth, or the pharaoh himself indicates a level of detachment from official theology that scholars hesitated to attribute to the Egyptians of the New Kingdom. One particularly revealing text, which archaeologists dubbed the tale of an Egyptian's journey around the world, narrates the misadventures of a traveler who encounters mythological beings and absurd situations, reversing the roles of hero and deity. Scientists interpreted this as a humorous exploration of the contradictions and inconsistencies inherent in a pantheon of hundreds of gods with often conflicting histories. Laughter becomes a form of theological criticism. The satirical art found on the fragments is equally shocking. In addition to the animal parodies, scientists discovered drawings caricaturing religious ceremonies and funerary rituals. One ostracon depicts a priest with a comically disproportionate head, clumsily performing a solemn ritual. This visual mockery was a subtle attack on the infallibility of the priestly caste, the second most powerful institution after the pharaoh. If you're surprised by this discovery about forbidden texts from ancient Egypt, don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow us. There's still much more to reveal about this mysterious civilization. The technique of inversion, where the world is turned upside down, became the literary signature of forbidden texts. The fact that the cat, the most revered domestic animal and often associated with the goddess Bastet, is demoted to the mouse's servant is an extremely powerful act of symbolic subversion. Scientists interpreted this inversion as a subconscious desire to see Egypt's rigid social order dismantled, or at least questioned in the private sphere. The copying and discarding of these texts became an archaeological phenomenon in itself. The discovery of multiple copies of the same jokes or stories in different ostraka and in different hands suggests the existence of an active black market, or rather, a system of informal borrowing and copying of this literature. Archaeologists deduced that these texts were entertainment products and a symbol of cultural belonging to the intellectual elite of Deir el-Medina. The secret of the ban was, in essence, a threat to authority. Satirical literature and parody are inherently democratizing. By mocking the gods and rulers, the writer and reader place themselves on a plane of intellectual superiority, stripping authority of its divine aura. This power of laughter was what the Theban hierarchy feared and what the artisans hoarded in their dumps. The revelation of these texts has changed the way historians interpret Egyptian canonical literature. The humor, irony, and criticism previously attributed to Greek or Roman influences are now recognized as a native intellectual tradition that existed 1,000 years before the arrival of Alexander the Great, but was deliberately hidden and relegated to the margins of society. The forbidden texts are the lost mirror, of Egyptian laughter. The legacy of the discovery is the recognition that the intellectual complexity of ancient Egypt was far greater than its monuments. Scientists found in a pile of rubbish the key to understanding the mental life and critical wit of a civilization that, until then, seemed uniformly pious and obedient. Forbidden literature is the silent testimony of a culture of laughter that the pharaohs could not control. The fourth and most intimate secret revealed by the forbidden texts was the emotional and sexual lives of the artisans. The presence of erotic poetry and explicit drawings in the ostraca provided unprecedented visibility to the sexual mores of the period, a subject that was taboo in public documentation. These fragments, though small, are a sociological archive of upper-middle-class Egyptian sexuality, unveiled by official moralizing. Scientists faced ethical challenges when handling these texts. The explicit and satirical nature of some drawings and writings required Egyptologists to develop new protocols for the publication and display of these materials, respecting both their historical value and modern sensibilities. The intimacy of the texts led to a debate about the ethics of disclosure in archaeology. The impact of the written word at Deir el-Medina was another key finding. The community, being highly literate, used the ostracon as a rapid, disposable communication platform. This format allowed them a level of literary experimentation that formal papyrus did not. The forbidden texts are, in this sense, the earliest form of blogging or microblogging in antiquity, where social criticism and humor could be transmitted and then easily deleted. The historical context of the discovery adds another layer of shock. Scientists discovered these texts during a period of profound economic and social crisis in Deir el-Medina, marked by worker strikes and corruption. It is likely that satirical and banned literature intensified during these periods as a form of intellectual resistance and community solidarity in the face of the state's failure to protect its labor elites. The final legacy of the forbidden texts is not only that they existed, but that they survived. The act of throwing them into the dump was, ironically, their only chance of preservation. The secret was not that people didn't want the texts to be read, but that the dump itself became the involuntary archive of ancient Egypt's true voice and subversive thought. The silence of the temples was finally broken by laughter from the garbage. Thank you for joining us on this exploration of the forbidden texts of ancient Egypt. If you enjoyed it, please like, subscribe, and follow us so you don't miss our next videos full of discoveries. See you next time.